Everybody put it live.
Yeah, and I do it now. Big up, you know.
Action of lactucarium was weaker than that of opium, but free of the side effects. Medical practice showed that in some cases, lactucarium produced better curative effects than opium. No addiction, no respiratory depression, no euphoria that enslaved patients to the needle. By 1898, the United States Pharmacopoeia, the official compendium of approved medicines, listed wild lettuce alongside morphine and aspirin. It was standardized, tested, official. In 1911, the British Pharmaceutical Codex added it for use in lozenges, tinctures, and syrups as a sedative for irritable cough, or as a mild hypnotic for insomnia. The Serval Company's 1917 medicinal plant catalogue called it highly esteemed to quiet coughing and allay nervous irritation, a good safe remedy to produce sleep, to be used when opium and other narcotics are objectionable. This was written when opium and cocaine were still sold over the counter. Wild lettuce was not a folk remedy. It was official medicine. Doctors prescribed it. Pharmacists stocked it. Patients trusted it. Then the industry shifted beneath it. The 1930s through the 1960s birthed the pharmaceutical golden age. Penicillin, sulfonamides, synthetic vitamins, antibiotics that cured tuberculosis and pneumonia for the first time in human history. But something else changed. The entire philosophy of drug discovery. Pharmaceutical companies shifted from natural products to synthetic chemistry. New laboratories abandoned beakers of plant extracts for molecular models and X-ray crystallography. Chemists learned to build molecules from scratch. Aspirin was synthesized in 1899, barbiturates appeared in 1901, and eventually Tylenol in 1955. The advantage was control. A synthetic molecule could be patented, marketed, priced, and protected. Every bottle sold generated profit for decades. Natural medicines could not. Wild lettuce grew free. Anyone could harvest it. No patent, no exclusive rights, no recurring revenue model. By the 1940s, the FDA expanded its authority. The Insulin Amendment of 1941 required all batches of insulin to be tested for purity before marketing. The Penicillin Amendment of 1945 did the same for antibiotics. Regulation tightened, and standardization became law. Wild lettuce faced a new barrier. To remain in the pharmacopoeia, it needed clinical trials, multi-phase testing, and millions of dollars in research. Who would fund that? You cannot patent a plant that grows wild. There was no financial incentive to prove what centuries already knew. In 1944, researcher Fulton published what amounted to a death sentence. Modern medicine considered its sleep-producing qualities a superstition, and its therapeutic action doubtful or nil. Never mind that it had relieved pain for 2,500 years. Never mind that Civil War surgeons used it when morphine ran out. Never mind that Polish doctors documented its safety. The study claimed commercial lactucarium preparations were without effect. Later research revealed why. The active compounds lactucin and lactucopicrin are unstable. They degrade in old preparations. Fresh lactucarium worked. Shelf-stable commercial products did not. But the damage was done. Wild lettuce fell from the pharmacopoeia. Doctors stopped prescribing it. Pharmacies stopped stocking it. A generation of physicians trained after 1950 never learned it existed. What rose in its place was an empire worth billions. The global pain relief market reached $80 billion by 2023. Over-the-counter analgesics alone generate $30 billion annually. Aspirin dominates. Approximately 60 billion aspirin tablets are consumed worldwide each year. Americans alone ingest 34 billion. 1 trillion aspirin tablets were taken in the last century. Big Pharma built fortunes on molecules it could patent. Ibuprofen, acetaminophen, naproxen, each one protected by intellectual property law. Each one sold at controlled prices, each one requiring purchase. Again and again. The genius was creating need. Pain exists. Everyone suffers at some point. Headaches, arthritis, back pain, surgical recovery. The pharmaceutical industry promised relief. For a price. $20 for a bottle of Advil, $15. Multiply that by 8 billion people, recurring monthly. Companies like Bayer, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and GlaxoSmithKline built empires on this model. Marketing budgets in the billions, lobbyists in direct-to-consumer advertising that tells you to ask your doctor. But there was always a problem. Side effects. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen cause stomach ulcers and bleeding. Acetaminophen damages livers at high doses. Opioids, the most effective painkiller, created the addiction crisis, still killing 100,000 Americans per year. The search for alternatives drove research. CBD oil, turmeric, medical marijuana. Billions invested in finding non-relief. Yet wild lettuce, proven non-addictive for 2,500 years, remained forgotten. Then in the 1970s, something unexpected happened. The counterculture discovered it. Young people seeking legal alternatives to controlled substances found references in lettuce opium. They brewed teas. They smoked dried leaves. They mixed it with catnip and damiana. It was weak compared to was legal. The Food and Drug Administration had never scheduled it. This brought attention, not from doctors, but from researchers. In 2005, scientists at the University of Arizona tested lactucin and lactocopecrine, the active compounds, on mice. At doses of 30 milligrams per kilogram, they produced pain relief comparable to ibuprofen. A 2021 study confirmed the mechanism. Lactucin acts as an adenosine receptor agonist. It calms nerve signals without triggering opioid receptors. No addiction pathway, no respiratory depression. The compounds also inhibit acetylcholinesterase, the same target as some Alzheimer's medications. Wild lettuce does not just dull pain, it... Today you can buy wild dried leaves in health stores and capsules marketed as natural sleep aid. Prices range from $15 to $30 per bottle. But there is a problem. Quality varies wildly. There is no FDA oversight and no standardization. Some products contain barely any lactucarium. Others compounds differ. Fresh lactucarium and used properly. But the knowledge of how to extract it and dose it was lost when the last generation of pharmacists who stocked it died. The pharmaceutical industry did not set out to erase wild. They built a system where it could not compete. Patents favor synthetic molecules. Clinical trials cost millions of dollars. FDA approval requires corporate funding. Insurance reimburses brand name drugs, but not wild plants. The result is the same. Used for 2,500 years, vanished. Not because it failed, but because it succeeded without generating revenue. 75 million Americans suffer chronic pain. 20% of adults worldwide suffer chronic pain. The pain management industry projects $120 billion by 2033. And a plant growing in ditches, requiring no prescription, no refill, no patent, no profit, sits forgotten. Wild lettuce never left. It still grows along roadsides from California to Massachusetts, on riverbanks across Europe, and in waste ground in Iran, Austria, France, Germany, and Scotland. You can identify it if you know what to look for. A tall stem, sometimes purple spotted, jagged leaves with spines along the center vein, and small yellow flowers. Cut the stem and white sap bleeds out. The harvest method is a tall stem, sometimes purple spotted, jagged leaves with spines along the center vein, and small yellow flowers. Cut the stem and white sap bleeds out. The harvest method is simple. Cut stems in late summer when the sap runs thick. Collect the latex on plates or directly into alcohol. Dry it into a brown resin or preserve it in a tincture. Fresh extraction works best because the compounds degrade in old commercial products. Herbalists still teach it. Foragers still harvest it. Small companies still sell it. The FDA never scheduled it. It remains legal to grow, possess, and use. But the medical establishment largely ignores it. Medical schools do not teach it. Doctors do not prescribe it. Pharmacies do not stock it. Insurance will not cover it. The knowledge exists in the margins. Survival blogs, homesteading forums, herbal medicine books, people who remember what their grandparents knew, and people who refuse to forget. This is what they tried to bury. Not just a plant, but the idea that relief can grow free. That medicine does not require corporations, and that knowledge can pass from hand to hand without a profit motive. The pharmaceutical industry will tell you wild lettuce is unreliable, unstandardized, and potentially dangerous.